listening to the Created to Create show.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Created to Create show. I'm your host, Ben Gluntz. This is Creative Flow, where we're trying to get in the creative flow. There's no better way to put that, so I just keep saying that because, I mean, what are we doing? We're trying to get better. We're trying to learn and grow in both personal and creative and professional areas. So I hope that my growth extends to you as well, and you're able to just become a better version of yourself and become closer to the purpose that God has designed for your life. It's a really exciting day today because I have one of my best friends, Carlie Dill, actually in the studio. So we've been doing a lot of phone calls recently, but I actually have her in the flesh all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. And we get to talk about something really cool that I haven't talked about with anybody yet.
Honored.
Mostly because it pertains to your age, which normally you wouldn't talk about with a woman. But today we're going to scratch that off the list. We're going to give ourselves, a little grace and talk about it.
Permission granted.
Thank you. I should have asked, honestly. Can we talk?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Yeah, let's just get into it. I mean, essentially, there's just a stigma around the professional world, right? With age and let alone like being a woman and also being of young age, which how old are you again? 24? Okay, 24. I got it right. I was afraid. So 24 years of age, and that's such a sophisticated way to say
24 years
it.
old.
24 years old. And you've done some pretty cool things in those 24 years, mostly in the last 4 years. And most of the time in our country, in our culture, you graduate at 18, you go to a 4-year college, maybe go grad school. And so you're entering the workforce around 24 to 28, depending on how you're finishing school. And so you're already considered young then, but for you and I, we're college dropouts. And so I entered the workforce around 21, 22, and you entered the workforce around 19. So for you, I just want to open the conversation and ask, how do you view yourself as a young person? How have you matured even since 19, 5 years ago when you kind of got into the professional scene and decided, hey, I don't know if college is right for me. I think I'm ready to just jump in and figure it out.
Yeah.
And I just want to talk through the growing pains. So if you're listening today and you are a younger person, maybe you're thinking about jumping out of college, or maybe you're just fresh out of college and you're having a lot of issues with being in creative and professional spaces as a young person and trying to find that line between being confident and being humble, and just learning and growing. That's what we're talking about today. So,
Perfect.
Carlie Dill.
Hi, guys. It's so awesome to be here, and I love the podcast. I've been a day oneer.
Oh, thank you so much.
Tactic Creatives. I'm just kidding.
It was named something else a while back. And
back in the day.
Carlie, so this is Carlie's first time on the podcast, but she was on here when it was a different entity.
I am an OG. Comment down below. Make sure you subscribe. Are you subscribed? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway,
now that we've got that out of the way,
yeah.
I'm honored to be here. This is so fun.
Honored to have you.
So I think it's so funny. And sorry if I understand the question correctly, but so for those who don't know, I'm a YouTube producer. I work in YouTube, and it's really funny because I was going to college, and it was in person at Baylor, and the pandemic hit, and I transitioned into online school. And my mom has her master's in statistics. My parents went to college.
Incredible woman, incredible, smart.
So smart,
beautiful,
so talented, perfect in every way. And I think I was always inspired by that, and always thought like college was what was going to be for me. And even when I wasn't sure, going to college was never a question. Graduating college was never a question. I was always hardworking. I liked school. Graduated from high school a year early was always the plan. And then once the pandemic hit, I transitioned to online school. And I remember, my family and I were paying a lot of money to go to college. And for me, that was always just the answer. I didn't even consider there being an alternative.
Right.
To me, I think I don't know if that's just culture, and I don't know how much it's changing now, but I was the youngest, so I don't know where people are at now. I think it's shifting, but I still think that the sentiment in our country is you go to college or you get a job. And if you get a job, it's normally in something that, you have to work your way up in. It'll take 10 years, like
a trade of some
sort. There's a very small percentage of people that do anything outside of that. And so for me, graduating was always on the plan. And then I'll never forget, I moved to LA. I was 19 years old and I met a guy randomly my first day in LA. And I started PAing at a YouTube channel called Airrack, and it changed my life forever. And I stayed in college and I was doing full-time school and full-time work, 9 to 5 every single day, working, if not more. I mean, I was doing 40 to 80 hour work weeks. Everybody would know.
Yeah. She was on an absolute tear. Still is.
Oh, thank you. But like in that era, like it was really my first job.
Right.
And I was trying to do a good job, and it was something I'd never done before. And so I was working 40 to 80 hour weeks and doing college.
Right.
Well, I was doing college to the best of my ability. And I will never forget when I got offered my salary. We are in LA, so salaries are a little bit higher. But I got offered my salary, and it was what I was paying for Baylor. And I remember just kind of having a moment of like, I didn't drop out right away at all, but I remember going like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. And my mom graciously was helping me live in LA. She was like, you need to get a job, but like, I'll support you while you're in school, you know, because that was the plan. And so I had support, which I am also want to be clear is a big reason why I've been able to do everything I've been able to do is because I have had a really great support system. My family, I have never felt like I would end up homeless, you know, like I knew I could always live at home. I could always do that. But I knew that that wasn't what I wanted for my life, you know, like I wanted to be successful in something. And obviously that is a whole connotation itself. But so I ended up getting offered that job. I worked there over a year. And about halfway through the year, I realized that I couldn't do both. I started failing college. And I knew I had a decision to make, and I knew that I couldn't do both and that something had to give. And I had a moment. And again, dropping out of college for me really felt like failing.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like if I drop out of college, that is me giving in. I'm failing. I told my parents I could do it. I told myself I could do it. Why can't I do it all? And I wanted to do it all, and I had to come to a conclusion that I couldn't. So I knew I had to either go back to college and finish, which was going to take at the time I transferred. So long story short, it was going to take like 2 more years.
Right. You're about halfway through,
I was
right?
like halfway through, yeah. And so, and because of the transfer credit, like I had 2 years left.
Yeah.
But I was still young. I was still 19, 20, but I still had 2 years left. So it was like, go back and finish for 2 years or drop out and commit to the bit a little bit. And so go back to college or drop out and pursue my career. Also at the time, a helpful context is I did not know that this job was going to become my career. To me, this was just a job.
It's just a PA job or production. Like you're helping, you're figuring things out, like coordinating. Yeah. It's
entry level production assistant job. Knew nothing about YouTube. Had no idea it was a career. To me, I was kind of taking a chance on something I didn't know would work out or not.
Right.
Anyway, sorry.
Let's jump into that.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people, like whether they've dropped out of college or not dropped out of college, they kind of get into an entry level position and there's an element of proving yourself. So what did proving yourself look like? And if you could just provide context into the feelings that you were having as a young person getting into like a first foot in the door type of job at a very prestigious YouTube channel, fast growing YouTube channel, one of the fastest growing YouTube channels on the platform at that point. So what was it like as a young person? And then how did you grow from that into like your next position? How did you carry yourself?
I think it's really interesting. Shout out Hayden Trowbridge if you're seeing this. Hayden's the one who hired me and believed in me and has since to this day probably been like the number one supporter of my whole career and provided a lot of opportunity for me in the space. But it was so interesting because I came in and I'll never forget, like I came in so hot. I was so excited. I thought, not even that I knew things. I knew I didn't know anything, but I was just so excited. I wanted to be a part. Yeah. And they had to like sit me down and hold my hand and be like, you are so excited. And we love that. You don't know anything. And I was like, perfect. Like
so humility right
off the bat. And I remember kind of having this big gut reality check where I was like, it's not that I thought I knew anything, but it was that I really believed that I wanted to be there and I wanted to give my all with anything I did. And so, just really fascinating. And I think it was really scary. I was also, if you know me, like, or if you know the channel, it's a very boy-centered channel. I was one of 2 girls working on a team of over 17 people, and it was all guys. And we're not just talking like guys. We're talking like, bro, what up? Nice to meet you, guys, you know?
Right. And I don't want to get caught up in the whole like women aspect of it, because that's not what we're like focused on today. But like just being context, a woman in that too, like that's a whole other.
So this whole time I'm like young and I'm like a girl in this environment. So for me, it was so fascinating. And I think luckily everyone was really young. Everyone was really young, and that was really interesting to me.
So everybody was kind of in a little bit of a like proving themselves mentality.
Yeah, everybody was in a unique scenario. And so I think in the moment, I didn't feel alone. And in the moment, it didn't feel all that out of place.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people watching, most likely, I think my circumstance was very unique. And what I think will happen most of the time is you go into an environment, one that I'm in actually currently, where I am at a company. I consult at a company where I am the youngest person in the room.
Right.
Or anyone younger or my age is in a much lower position than I am. And so any of the rooms, the meetings I sit in, I was at an event yesterday. I'm one of by far the youngest people in the room. And it's always kind of been that way. And I really think and know from experience that you have to go into those rooms. You want to have humility, but you also have to have a confidence that you bring value and provide value.
Where do you get that confidence from? How do you like bring that into the room? Is it just from things that you know you've done, or is it from your ability to communicate with people? Like where do you tie that to?
Well, to also speak to the viewer, I think it's really interesting. If you're considering dropping out of college, or if you're considering pursuing a career, whether it's photography or videography or content creation or YouTube or something completely different, entrepreneurship, starting a business, no matter what it is, I'm assuming whoever's listening to this is in that scenario, you most likely have a skill. So to tell everyone, I would never, ever advise anybody drop out of college, give everything up, sell the house, like do not make dumb decisions, be wise. But wisdom can actually look like building a skill. Yeah. And once you build a skill, you can have confidence knowing that you provide value based on the skill that you have. So I think that's a really key piece here. And what's so interesting is when you become an expert in something, or when you gain a skill, you start to believe that everyone else has the skill too. And the truth is they don't. Most people don't. And I actually this is something I've been learning in the last 6 months, but for 5 years, I just assumed that everything I was learning about YouTube, everybody else knew.
Right. It's that imposter syndrome too, because you basically convince yourself that you're not unique and you don't have a specific skill, like you were saying, or even just like the ability to carry yourself in a room. You're like, oh, everybody can talk the way I can talk. Everybody can relate the way I can relate. And like you're saying, like in reality, maybe a few people can, maybe like minority. One other person, but for your specific skill, like, there's a reason you're there.
Exactly. And I think, there's been a couple moments in my career where I've had those kind of like awakening, come to Jesus moments where I've said, oh, wow, this is not normal. This is not, people do not understand. And again, I'm consulting at companies now and working with creators. And I started in a lane where I was working with creators and I was actually learning from them, which is how I started my career, which is probably in those moments you start your career. And I would encourage anyone we're always learning, right? But in those first 1 to 3 years, you should go to a place where you can learn more than anything and ever before. Go to a place where you can learn. I tell everyone that channel that I worked at Airrack, and it was the fastest growing YouTube channel one of the fastest growing on the platform that year. And I tell everyone I went to YouTube University. I learned what a title was. I learned what click-through rate is. I learned how to read the analytics. I learned skills from a professional that you cannot learn in college. It's kind of like going to film school is not going to help you make YouTube videos. It's not going to help you become a content creator. If you're trying to become a creator or build a business, yes, is business school potentially helpful if you can afford college? But if you are someone that's going to take out loans and go into $100,000 worth of debt, that is a bad decision. Like I don't know how else to say it. It is unfortunately going into debt for a skill that will not recoup in the next 3 to 5 years is a negative business decision.
Right. Yeah. And I completely agree. And I don't want to get caught up necessarily in the whole college versus non-college thing.
I'm a little biased.
Same. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like when it comes to making decisions for your life, you have to be self-aware and you have to kind of ask yourself some of these questions beforehand. That way you can make that decision. Because if you're not wanting to go into a field or do something that's remotely related to the skill that you're learning in college, then like you shouldn't be going and doing that, or even spending the time, even if you're getting college paid for, maybe spending 4 years like putting yourself in the fire is more useful than going to, college and maybe wasting a little time learning something else.
Absolutely.
But can you really quick, like, what are some of the questions you asked yourself that are practical, other people could ask themselves, to either make yourself more self-aware or just beg yourself the question, what do I want to do? Because I think that's an issue that a lot of young people don't necessarily know. And so they can't make an informed decision, and then they're just taught by people above them, like, oh, you should make this decision because this is the decision I made, rather than, So what are some practical questions that someone can ask themselves?
I think the biggest thing is, and it's so funny, there's a couple things here, but I think one of the biggest questions you should ask yourself is, what is a skill you bring to the table that most other people don't have? For example, something I am very good at is talking to people. I can network, I can talk, I can connect with people, I can make people feel comfortable. So I'm a producer. That is what producers do. They make people feel comfortable, they make people feel confident, they connect with people. I would ask yourself, and it can be tangible. Like if you have a skill where you can draw, good for you. I cannot. If you can sing, great for you. I cannot. There are some tactical things there, right? Like if you're good with your hands, if you have an eye for things. I mean, Ben has such an eye for the shot. I feel like I always tell Ben he's going to do the iPhone content at my wedding, because he literally at all these moments, you were
not even just the photos. Come on.
No, I want you to do the iPhone. I want him to do the iPhone video.
Thank you for the
But he has this way of seeing a moment before it happens. And that is such a skill. And I think that's why you're a good photographer and videographer, right? You can see a moment before it happens. But then, so there's tactical skills, but it can sometimes be more impractical and, what's the word? Just soft skills. And those are actually potentially the ones you should lean into more, right? Which is, how do you interact with people? And maybe you aren't extroverted. Maybe you're more introverted. That could also be a skill. That could be something unique, right? Is there a place where maybe you're more private, and there's some jobs where discretion is heavily advised or heavily admired. The FBI,
no,
perfect. But it's intense. Knowing what are your skills and how can they be applied to a field in a unique way. And also asking yourself, the second question is, what is your unique selling proposition? What is unique about you? For me, I fell into YouTube, and it is a bro club, and I'm not leaning there. I'm just saying that was my USP. I was a girl in the industry who was smart enough to make a wave, right? And now there's female creators, there's creators of all different kinds, where most of the people that get on calls, it's not about gender. It's just, that was my unique selling prop is maybe you're someone that, how can you be different? How can you stand out? If you're a guy hairstylist, those two things naturally probably it's more common now, but those my contradiction is actually confidence. It's actually your leg up. So if there's something that feels out of place, maybe lean into it actually.
Yeah, maybe that's the X factor in your life.
It could be leaning into what makes you different can actually be what sets you apart from everybody else.
I like what you said about soft skills, because before you can lean into the unique, you have to lean into kind of the normal everyday operating skills of life. Because at the end of the day, we live in a world filled with humans and relationships. And so you have to be able to relate before anything else. So whatever skill you have, and you do develop, you have to be able to have that foundation of communication, and all the other things that go along with just operating as a person and as a professional. And so I like that you said that, because that is definitely something that you should figure out first, because at that point, the skill will come later, and you can always learn a new skill. I was talking to Sam the other day about it, and my buddy Sam, and we were talking about learning a new skill because he's learned basketball, and he's really pushing himself there. And so you can always find out something new that you want to learn and then put your mind to it, learn it. But if you don't necessarily have those key components of communication down, then the skill might not even benefit you, because you won't either be able to relate the skill to something that can be used. You won't be able to communicate that you have that skill to somebody, whether it's marketing, website, or whether it's just in a conversation. And then when you're actually using the skill, you won't be able to communicate to get projects done. So,
and that's also something you can develop without access. So being a young person, you can work on your networking skills. You can work on your communication skills. There's books and podcasts and so many resources, and you don't have to be in a meeting room or on a client call necessarily. Like, you don't have to be at the right job or have the right connection to work on those skills, and those skills are actually going to take you further than the tactical ones, because the tactical ones can always be taught, but the soft skills normally take learning, and most employers actually care more about, and most creatives and people that I've worked with and have hired me, almost every single time it's because they like who I am as a person and they appreciate how I communicate.
Yeah. Let's flip the coin a little bit. So
Great.
we've talked a lot about like the positives, you going into the place, like you being accepted or actually pushed in the right ways. But have you ever been jeopardized for your expertise because of your age?
It's so interesting. You know, I am a hyper optimistic person. So I really think I lean on like, oh, everything's learning and like everything's great. But like, there have been a lot of moments, and I'm trying to actually, this is really on the fly, guys. I'm really trying to pinpoint if there's like a moment, but there have been a lot of moments where I think my age felt, I don't know what the word is, like almost embarrassing. Like my
For
age,
you,
for
going
me.
into, so
Yeah,
maybe
like,
not said by somebody, but me
feeling that way about it. Yeah. And I'm on the Lighthouse Council. This is maybe a good example. I'm on the Lighthouse Council. It's this council where they open up a creative space in Venice. It's incredible. It currently exists.
Yep.
And a couple years ago, I got invited to become a part of their creator council. And, you know, even looking back, I joke all the time. I'm like, I have no idea how I got invited.
Right.
You know,
because
like,
that council is basically providing ideas for how this very prestigious creative space is supposed to look, feel, act,
who's going to be a part of it,
who's going to be a part of it,
all the elements of it. And
so it's a big time role with creators you would all know, with names in LA that are like some of the biggest names in the creator scene in the city. Yep.
And I remember looking at the list and getting invited to this lunch, and the people that lead it are potentially my biggest heroes in the industry. And I remember getting invited, and I literally thought it was fake. And I was like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to like wear a cute outfit and like show up. And I would never forget showing up to that lunch. And I think by a landslide, I'm like trying to rack my brain. I think by a landslide, I was the youngest person in the room, youngest person at the dinner or at the luncheon. And I remember feeling so out of place. I had so much imposter syndrome. I couldn't understand why I was there and why I was invited. And it was actually, we did those once a month, and I was actually at another one, and I got talking to a friend, and I actually just saw him yesterday. It was so funny because I remember this moment. You know, there's so many moments that people say things they never remember that like deeply impact you.
Yep.
And I remember walking with him, and I kept telling him, I was like, and this guy has now exited, you know, $100 million exit on a company, very, very, very successful, talented man. And I'm sitting here talking to him, and I'm like, I just, you know, it's so exciting talking to you. Like, I honestly don't know how I got invited here. Like, you know, this was deep in a conversation. I was just being pretty honest. He was like, how are you feeling? How's life? I was like, good. Like, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I got here. I don't, you know, and he was like, you have to remember that your perspective is unlike anyone else's in this room. You bring value and perspective. Your age is actually your secret weapon, because you bring a value and a perspective that none of us can have, because we're 10 years behind. And I was like, wow. And he was like, and you're here for a reason. And I had this moment where I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, I am here. I'll get emotional. I'm like, you're right. Like, I am here. And it's not in a cocky way, but it's in this like, I do provide value. I have value. And I'm saying this, like, we can all say this to ourselves, you know, like you provide value. You are important. You bring perspective that someone else can't bring because of your age.
Right.
And honestly, like, and in 2026, in this point in time, it's actually, I would argue, what would have been discouraging maybe even 5 years ago, what I experienced, the nail has completely like flipped its head. And I actually think we're having a different issue. And it's like, being a young person in the creative scene is actually such a positive. Everybody is trying to hire someone like me.
Right.
And so the job market, a lot of people are like, the job market's really tough. And if it is for you, I'm so sorry. For someone like me, I have never experienced more work in my entire life because I got in early. And so that's my other encouragement is it's just like, you are getting in early. The earlier you start, the more years you have on everybody else.
Yeah. It's just like what people talk about with investing. Like the earlier you start investing, the more return that you have.
Exactly.
And so if you are a young person in that space and you're allowing yourself to be humbled first and then the confidence coming from that humility.
Absolutely.
Then that's like the double-edged sword, or like maybe that's not the right word.
No,
but that's the X factor, which allows you to operate in full confidence while still learning from everybody that you meet.
And it's like, I'll never forget, going back to my first job, I was so humbled and I knew nothing. And I remember going in and just asking questions, and I asked a lot, and I'll never forget, they told me I could ask questions and find a place that you can ask questions because I asked countless questions, stupid questions. And then I just executed again and again and again. And I failed and I got back up, and I failed and I got back up. And after falling so many times, you start falling less, and you get to a place where, and then I would also say, like, do things before you think you're ready. And I know that's advice I've been given, and start before you're ready and go before, the light turns green, not driving. But like, it's just like somebody said to me, or I saw on a podcast from someone that, if you started when you felt ready, you started too late. And I think I got lucky that I, a combination of the Lord and opportunity and all these things, but I actually started way before I was ever ready. And because of that, I look back now, and I was a 19-year-old girl when we built the world's largest pizza with Pizza Hut. And that was like, that video is like YouTube legend, and one of the biggest projects I've worked on in my career, and most of the biggest projects I've ever worked on in my career, I did in my first year.
Yeah, still to this day, the biggest projects I've worked on in my career, I did in my first 12 months of the industry, which is really funny to like look back on now. Because I'm like, I remember seeing you running around the grounds of SoFi Stadium, just this little girl, blonde hair, just bob, Pizza Hut, just running around, like yelling at full-grown men because they weren't where they needed to be. And I'm just like, oh, there's Carlie. Like, that's one of my friends. Hi, guys.
Me recruiting all my friends. I'm like, I need you to break the world record. Like, like literally, I was like, and to this day, it's the biggest project I've ever done. To this day, it's the biggest project I've ever done. And I was 19 years old, and I had no idea what I was doing. And none of us did. And I think that's the key.
That.
But we knew that too.
And you were honest about it. I mean, I'll get deep here for a sec, right?
Perfect.
We're best friends, so I can say this. But when we first met, like, for me, I was like, who is this dumb blonde who is probably the most like airhead,
so valid.
Just like ignorant almost person that I know. That I've met. And now, like, over the years, one thing that stuck out to me is, okay, sure, you were like a certain level of ignorance. Sure, you were like just not cultured necessarily, like all this stuff, but you knew that about yourself and you were honest with yourself. And most importantly, you were honest with all of your friends and all of the people that you ever talked to. There was never a fake it till you make it mentality. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for me, because I'm like just now learning to really sit in that and like be like, you've taught me to be more open and more honest with my failures, because it's humbling. Are you kidding me? Like, you running around, it's like I don't know if you knew it or not, but like knowing that people think about you a certain way, it's like, oh, look, here's Carlie. Loud. She's loud. She's doing this or whatever. It's like we all joke with you about it, but it's because we love you.
Yeah, no, I know.
I don't want to make this awkward, but yeah, like the point is like you, because you have that quality, the amount of growth that you've had in 5 years is more than most people have in 25 years. And I think that's the key, and that's the strength for you. And that's why you're like sitting here a completely transformed person, is because you allow yourself to be put through the fire rather than like trying to tiptoe around it and still grow.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, I'll never forget a pastor actually. My home pastor used to talk about sin, and I know a lot of people might not, you know, whatever you believe, but I don't know the vibe. But, you know, when you do something wrong, he would tell us to shine a light on it. And he would always say, you know, don't hide it, shine a light on it, confess and be forgiven and move on, you know, and that's what I would do. And I kind of took that mentality with work. And I've noticed that in corporate culture and in just everyday work culture, we're so keen to hide our failures and to say, oh, I didn't know, and, you know, make excuses and move on.
There's big pressure on you.
Big pressure. But I actually have found that I've gained the most respect, gotten the most work, and honestly, like, held the most retention with clients, friends, family, when I just said, hey, I made this mistake. I am sorry, you know, and taken full ownership and owned 100% of my problems and said, hey, I made this mistake. Here's what I'm going to do about it. Here's our solutions. Which one would you like? I can do X, I can do Y, I can do Z. So coming, and it's not just owning the failure, it's saying, hey, I have failed, but also providing solutions and saying there is a solution. And if there's not a solution, being honest, saying, I broke your vase and I can't fix it. And I can't afford to buy a new one. You know, like, I mean, genuinely. Yep. Or if you can't go, hey, I broke your vase. I can buy a new one. We can go get it fixed. How important is it to you? Do you want me to buy you something different? You know, like, what would you like me to do to solve this problem? Yep. I am so sorry. I did this. Yep. And there has been so many times where, you know, I'm a social media manager. I'll miss a post and I'll tell my client, hey, I am so sorry. I actually just forgot. Yep. I didn't make something up. I didn't say I got caught in traffic. Sometimes that happens too. But I said, hey, I just forgot. You can't do that all the time, right? But taking ownership and saying, I just forgot, here's what I'm going to do. I have a reminder set. I have it in the calendar. I have someone on standby if there's a reason I can't post it, and it won't happen again.
Right.
You take ownership, you get forgiven, and you move on. And if someone can't accept that, then you probably shouldn't work with them. So
true. Yeah. I mean, that's just a relational issue at that point too, you know? I think, like, to your point, if you mess up and if it involves other people, you don't like move past that as fast as you can. Right. You acknowledge it and sit in it until the other person fully acknowledges it. Yes. And then wants to move towards a solution. Then you kind of like move towards that solution. Right. It's not like you're saying, oh, just like, I messed up again.
But I'm saying there's a process.
I messed up again. You know?
There's a process for owning your failures. And it's a slow process, but owning your failures. Yeah. Taking time and then providing solutions. And I've just seen a lot of people stray away from the failures when I think they're actually maybe like the biggest opportunities for growth in relationship and in respect. Yeah.
Well, let's close this out really quick with one last question. So talking about like the critique, right? Like your inner critique and being humble enough to like know that you've fallen short and then you need to fix it. We know ourselves better than anybody else, right? And that means that we're our biggest critique. My question is like, how do we allow that to help us more than it hurts us? Like, where's the difference, and how can we make sure that that is something that is spurring us forward and not holding us back from the growth that we need to do?
Yeah, I think it's so good. This is actually something that my best friend McCall and I talk about a lot, because I think especially being young people who have accomplished a lot of what we would want to accomplish in life and gotten to places in our career that people, you know, hope to get to in decades of their career, and having moments of stepping back and going, wow, like how lucky am I? How lucky am I to be tired and have these problems? You know, you're like, wow. And I think that there's really two spectrums, and I try and find myself in the middle, which is, I think being your harshest critic is good because you push yourself in a way that only you can. And I also think your environment really determines, you know, for everyone, I would say, move to a place, live with people, get in environments that push you, but that might not be a reality. You know, not everybody can move to LA. Not everybody can, you know, live in this creative house. We've had this incredible blessing of living in places, meeting people, and doing life in community with people that push us. And that's my number one advice, is if you can put yourself with those people, then wow, like, you know, that's the answer. But ultimately, if not, then you are the only person that can move the ball forward. And ultimately, most of us aren't in places where we can hire teams and provide resourcing. You know, you are the only person. Things do not, I will never forget, it was Josh Rath. And he was like, I think it was Josh Rath, And he was like, please, things don't move unless I move. Mm-hmm. As an entrepreneur, things don't move unless you move. So you have to be the one to move it. So if you're happy with where you're at, you will never move the ball forward. Right. And you have to be the one to do that. But at the same time, I also have to have these moments where I'm like, sometimes I'll step back and I'm like, I'm failing at everything. I hate my life.
Dark hole.
Yes. And you're like, I'm failing. I have no friends. My career is awful. You lose a client and you're like, everything is up in flames. Everything. And then I go into a room yesterday. I was at an event. I was the youngest person there. I was in rooms with C-suite executives at all the major companies, all discussing the future of the creator economy. And I walk into those rooms and I have to go, no, like, I provide value in this room. I know I'm meant to be here. And also, because I've been my harshest critic, I can also step back enough to go, you have to be confident enough to say, I'm going to show up and I'm going to own it in this room and find that balance of like, oh, you want to push yourself, but then also be able to provide value and know that you provide value. And that's just like, honestly, the biggest thing. But yeah, I think it is hard to be a young person, but at the same time, I think it is also the greatest blessing. And I wouldn't change it for the world. And spoiler alert, I have not gone back to college and probably never will, unless something really crazy happens.
Never say never.
Never
Justin
say
Bieber.
never.
No,
but
Coachella.
Did you go to Coachella? People but
you saw Justin Bieber, right?
I saw Justin Bieber at Coachella. It's
We'll
my Roman
talk about
empire.
that next time.
It's my Roman empire. I will talk about it later, but
that'll be a whole nother 2 hours.
That's a whole nother 2 hour podcast. We can't afford that. But I think just don't be afraid to do something that feels unconventional.
Yeah.
Might be the best thing that ever happens to you. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's big. I like what you said about moving forward, and I think that's the best route possible. And you have to move forward in faith as well, which we didn't get into much, but knowing that you are loved and cared for by the creator of the universe definitely felt like that helps me. That
and knowing he's going to be faithful no matter what you do. A pastor told me that too. He was like, when sin is not involved, you get to choose and we have free will and he is going to be with you no matter where you end up. Yeah. And I find so much joy and peace in that. So. Right.
It's definitely, peace that surpasses understanding allows you to live in a really cool place of confidence moving forward. Yeah. Knowing that you will fail, knowing that Jesus is already gone before you. The Lord has already gone before you. So that's a really cool aspect too. Yeah. We can chat more about that later, but I think moving forward is definitely the key here. Yeah. So, it's really cool to watch you continue to do that and practice it, and it's cool to have a front row seat. And, I'm excited to have more and more of these conversations. But thanks for coming on and making this one public.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so funny because I'm doing this, I'm like reminiscing and I'm like, I feel like my career's like just begun, and that's the other thing. You just feel like it every day. You feel like you're just starting. So,
well, that's what I was like, I had that on my list of questions too. Okay. Like, do you think you're ahead of the curve? Do you think behind the curve?
No, I still every day wake up and I'm like, we have so much to do. I'm just starting my career every day. And so I'm just like, I'm so happy to be here. And you got to like, comment, subscribe to Ben Glanson Created to Create.
Oh, thank you so much.
This is the place to be, everybody.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. Well, let's end it. Let's go play some golf. You're learning.
We have plans.
Golf is a new skill that you're learning as well. So let's go practice.
It's a good networking tool. So I'm working on that.
It is. Thank you guys so much. Exciting to have someone in the studio today. We might be doing a little bit more of this in the near future. So keep an eye out. But phone calls are so nostalgic too. So I can't give those up quite yet.
Comment down below if you like being in the studio.
Let me know if you guys have anybody you want me to call. I'm always open to chatting with people over the phone, and I think that makes like the possibilities endless with who I get to talk to as well. But just remember, guys, you're created to create, so do something about it. Come on, go out there, take some action. Love you guys. Peace.
You're listening to the Created to Create show.